Hello.
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 How's it going?
Good.
I'm feeling a bit of deja vu here.
What are you talking about?
I feel like this has happened already today.
No, you're lying.
Like 5 or 6 times.
What are you talking about? No, you're a liar and a slanderer.
Oh, okay.
How about that?
That's pretty harsh.
Take that and think about it.
I am your wife.
Flip it and reverse it. That's what I always
Pretty
say.
rude to say.
I was listening to last podcast on the left, and they were talking about this dude that was like got chased down and whipped, and they said that the best way to deal with that was to flip it and reverse it, to just like take your pants off and show them that you were enjoying it, and that they would stop doing it. So you take it, you flip it, and you reverse it. You turn it back on them.
Ew.
So that's advice that I'm going to take. If a mob is ever, beating me or whipping me or something, just make it seem like I'm enjoying it. And then they'll be less interested.
Always
Yeah,
listen to
probably.
last podcast on the left. They are the surefire way to get some good advice.
Hey, man, they are like one of the top podcasts on the planet.
I mean, yeah,
So-
they're pretty good. Take their advice with a grain of salt. I mean, that sounds like a pretty good advice.
I don't
flip
take
it and
all of their
reverse it.
advice at face value.
But
That piece of advice, I do take at face value. What is up, folks? Okay, here's the thing. Hello. Well, before I do this, we're talking about a TV show today.
It's true.
I don't know what to do. Does this episode get a number? Does it not get a number?
Oh.
is this
But-
we watch TV shows and then talk about it?
I don't
Do
know.
we have to change everything for this one episode?
But it's part of 31 Days of October.
That's what I'm saying. I'm so torn on it. It's not a special episode, which is the only time that we talked about TV shows before. So does this get an episode number?
Well, but do all of the ones in October get episode numbers?
The
the
four
31 Days
the
of
four main
October.
ones, yeah.
I'll leave it to your discretion.
When we talk about we talked about Under the Skin last week. If you missed it, go check out that episode. Next week we're talking about The Shining. That will get an episode number, and the week after we're talking about Suspiria, so that will get an episode number as well. Obviously, you know what? Screw it. Here it is. Hello and welcome to episode 45
Whoa.
Whoa.
of We Watch Movies and Then Talk About Them.
Things are changing.
The only podcast on the internet where we watch a movie and then talk about it. There may be others where other people watch movies and then talk about them, but this is the only one where we do it. My name is Andrew Westonsko. I am the host of this here podcast, joined at my right hand in life and in all things by Becca.
Hello.
She's my wife.
Yep, I am.
Haha. Sucker.
I chose this life.
How you feeling about that?
Most days pretty good.
Most days?
Yeah.
How about today?
Ask me later.
That's fair. At her right hand and my left hand, due to the entirely circular nature of our table, we are joined by Sid,
Hey,
also known as Trivia Sid, also known as...
we got Siffy Sid, we got Sidolus, Sidley Widley,
STD.
Sydney, STD, Skidney, Siddhartha.
Hang
I
on,
could
hang
go
on, hang on.
forever.
Now, that's a lot of nicknames for sure. I request now, live on the air, the origin of the nickname Skidney.
Sid and Skid rhyme.
Well, but why did somebody have both you and Skid?
You know,
On the brain.
I think I made that one up.
Oh, really?
It's like, when you're like playing like Jackbox games, everyone's putting funny things. I'm like, Skidney.
Oh, okay.
Like a
Nothing to do
skid
with like skid marks.
No,
Oh, that would have been a lot funnier.
no.
It's disappointing.
Sorry.
It is.
I mean, I have a story for the Siffy Sid.
Ooh.
It's a good story.
Let's hear it.
I think you've heard it.
Oh, but our listeners haven't.
Okay. I decided to go donate plasma because I'm very poor. I went fine the first time. A few days later, I get a letter in the mail, and they said, hey, you need to come in. There's something abnormal in your blood. I was like, cool, I'll go in sometime next week. The next day, they overnight me another message, and they're like, you need to come in. There's something abnormal in your blood. I go. They take me into a separate room. It's just me and this doctor, and he says, so I don't know what they told you, but you did test positive. I said, positive for what? for syphilis. And here's the thing. I have barely ever kissed a boy, let alone had sex, or did any drugs via needle. So that's not possible. And I don't have syphilis. I don't know why they told me I have syphilis. Unless syphilis and Syphilis was born.
So is that what you told the doctor? You're like, I don't have syphilis, and you just left?
No, well, he was like, you got to go get some like blood work done. And like,
Did you?
Yeah, I had to get like a bunch of blood work done. And they're like, the doctor was like, you've never had sex? I was like, no. You never done drugs? No. He's like, you don't have syphilis.
Do you want to know why your blood tested positive for syphilis?
Baking sugar. Because
when you go to donate plasma and they test your blood, they test a bunch of blood at the same time. And if there is syphilis in anyone's, like if it tests positive for anyone's, then all of those people test positive for
Are you
syphilis.
serious?
And none of them can donate plasma.
Why would they do it like that?
So you're telling me that doctor, his afternoon was just like, you have syphilis. You have syphilis.
Probably.
Freaking like Oprah, but with STDs. Like,
You get syphilis.
you get syphilis. You get
But
syphilis.
one of them actually does.
Yikes.
What if it's me? What if I
Well,
do?
that would be awkward.
You never know.
Then you would have tested positive when you tested again.
Okay. I guess that's fine.
Also, I feel like your like mental faculties would be deteriorating quite a bit at this point.
How do we know they're not?
I suppose that's fair.
Anyway,
Didn't like Thomas Jefferson have syphilis or something? Like Benjamin Franklin, one of those guys?
Probably.
I don't know. Anytime some like character in a movie or something, someone mentions syphilis, everyone looks at me.
I remember the episode of House where the old guy has syphilis. And House is like, no problem, we'll do some antibiotics and clear it right up. And he's like, no, I want my syphilis. And House is like, why? He's like, because it makes me happy. And then Michelle Branch came on the radio.
Wow. Okay.
I made up that last part, but
I mean, it seemed very fitting.
yeah. Can you imagine that? If he's like, my syphilis makes me happy, and then all of a sudden, if it makes you happy, like comes on the radio, that'd be great.
Wow.
That is Michelle
Oh,
Branch, right?
boy.
I don't think so.
Is it not?
I don't know.
Oh, that's Sheryl Crow. Whatever. Who cares? Sheryl Crow and Michelle Branch are basically the same person.
Yeah, it's true.
Basically.
Folks, today, we're stoked. We're stoked about this one, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about the Netflix original series, The Haunting of Hill House.
I've been looking forward to this since last year.
Did we decide last year that we were going to do this?
I mean, I did.
It was kind of like as soon as It Follows ended, I was like, hey, we're going to watch that next year.
Yeah.
Man, I'm so stoked for that. I'm so stoked to talk about that. It's going to be great. Okay. Yeah, today we're talking about the Netflix original series, The Haunting of Hill House, based on the novel by somebody.
Cheryl.
Crow.
No. Cheryl. What's her name?
I don't know.
Stephen Crane.
Shirley Jackson.
Shirley Jackson. She wrote a character called Shirley into her novel.
That's a bit of trivia. No, Shirley was not in the original novel.
They literally invented her for the show.
They invented her and Steven for the show.
So it's only 3 kids in the book.
Yeah, I mean the book and the series are way different.
So then how does Luke's coping mechanism possibly work? If there's not 7 of them.
You know, I don't think that's in the book, but
What is in the book? Ghosts?
I don't know.
They're like, there's a house and there's
It's
ghosts, so it's an
pretty
adaptation.
It's very, very different.
That's okay.
Yeah.
This is a 10-part. Is there a season 2?
There started one. It'll be
Oh,
next
really?
season. It's anthology.
Oh, okay.
That could work.
And it's got Luke, Nell, and Theo, and the dad playing the younger dad is going to be in the second season.
Oh, is it like their family again, or is
No.
it
Different
totally new
characters.
people?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm cool with that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Does it revolve around Hill House still?
No, it's what's it called?
So maybe they should have just made a new show.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it's called. I'm pretty sure I have it in trivia though.
Because like True Detective, you can get away with that because like, yep, they're detectives, all right. But like here, it's like The Haunting of Hill House. Like, well, what does it have to do with Hill House? Nothing.
It just has the same actors.
Is
That's
Mike
the
Flanagan doing
connection.
it again?
Yes.
That's good. Created by Mike Flanagan. It is a 10-part series chronicling the goings on of the Crane family at two different points in their lives, about 27 years apart, when they briefly live in a haunted house when they are young, and then dealing with the fallout of some stuff when they are older. We don't want to spoil it too much if you haven't seen it. First off, if you have not seen this, it gets a hardcore recommend from us.
Oh yeah.
It's quite good.
Yeah.
If you're into horror in any way, this will tickle your fancy. It's just good. It's good writing. It's good directing. It's good characters. Good acting. It's pretty much just good all around.
Even if you think you don't really like horror that much, like you don't have to love.
Yeah, it's
horror
not that
to
scary.
Like this.
It's not that scary.
Yeah.
The second season is The Haunting of Bly Manor.
Oh, that's what it's called.
I don't know if they're like changing the name, but that's what like the next season is.
Do you know what Bly Manor is?
I know it's based on a book.
Oh, all right, whatever.
Hmm.
Cool. So what, coming out next Halloween then, or is that
Sometime
probably the idea?
2020.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, it follows the Crane family. Mom, dad, 5 kids. Yeah, and that's as much as we'll say before getting into spoilers. We're gonna do some hot takes. Following that, we will be discussing the entirety of the series in its spoilery goodness. And following that, we're gonna give trivia and final thoughts. And then I guess we'll no, you can't put it on the Weston scale.
Yeah, I don't think we can.
We will not be putting this on the Weston scale. It's not a movie. As much as it sometimes plays out like a 10-hour movie, but it
Mhm.
doesn't really.
Yeah.
Each episode
It's
is
just
pretty
so
distinct.
different. Like you can't rate a TV show as a movie.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
We will not be putting this on the Weston scale, even though this episode is numbered. We're breaking all the rules today.
Yeah, we are.
For all the hopefuls out there who were hoping to see something other than a movie rated on the Weston scale, suck it. Yeah, so let's get into it. Let's do some hot takes. Don't burn yourself on these hot takes. Becca.
Oh, I'm waiting. I was waiting for you to ask me.
Becca.
You got really mad at me in the last episode.
Becca.
What?
How hot is your hot take?
It's very hot.
I can feel the toast from over here. I'm toasting bread on your hot take 10 feet away.
Good. I'm glad for that.
Just kidding. I'm toasting an English muffin. I'm going to make some eggs Benedict.
All right. I'll eat one of those.
Great.
Okay, thanks. I love this show. Like I mentioned, I've been excited to watch it for a year because we watched it last year and then we've been saving it for this year. I don't even know where to start with what I love about it because there's so many things and I feel like it's different for every episode, but I'm going to steal what Andrew likes to say about horror movies.
Here we go.
That it's really just a family drama disguised as a horror film.
Yep. That's what I say. The best horror is just family drama with some supernatural elements thrown in.
And it absolutely is. Like, it's way more about the family than it is about the ghosts. But the ghosts add such an interesting element, and they're able to, like, dive into themes and explore questions that you wouldn't be able to otherwise. So I love this show. And I do also want to say I was really proud of myself when we were watching it. There were multiple times where I caught myself thinking, oh, wow, that was great writing. Or, oh, that's cool editing. And usually I don't think things like that. So I was proud of myself for having those thoughts.
Becca is advancing as a film critic.
Yes, I am.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
We're all very proud of you.
So we'll get into everything. But my hot take is that this show is amazing. And probably my favorite TV show that I've ever seen.
Really now?
Wow.
Yeah.
Better than True Detective?
Yeah, I like True Detective, but I don't like it as much as you do. But this one, like, I love.
Major fat shout out, folks. Becca is allowed to be mistaken at this point. It's all right. But the definitive facts are this.
Do not share your opinions as facts.
The True Detective season 1 is the best season of TV that has ever been made. And that's that.
That is an opinion, because my opinion is The Haunting of Hill House is
Sid,
my favorite.
how hot is your hot take?
It's pretty hot. I love this show.
I'm heating up my hollandaise
my-
on your hot take.
My voice is giving way. Excuse me. I've seen this 3 times.
Oof.
And it's just even from the first time I watched it, I loved it. It was just, it had like the creepy aspects that I wanted. It had the drama. It had good writing. The amazing camera work. The camera work is so good in this. It's so good, but it's very fun to watch over it again after you know what happens, and you can pick up on things. You can see the hidden ghosts in the background. Yeah, I love this show so much, and I'm very excited to see what they do with the next season.
I wanna say something about that. It is very fun to watch it a second time, but it's also like you're just punching yourself the entire time because everything is so obvious.
Yeah. Once you know, everything's pretty obvious.
Everything is so obvious.
Yeah, I was worried that I wouldn't like it as much a second time because the twists were so good the first time,
Mhm.
but it's still good. Even as obvious as everything is, I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah, it definitely is still very, very good.
Mhm.
My hot take is this. I really, really enjoy this. It does the kind of disconnected narrative really well, where really over the course of the whole season, honestly, you're kind of filling in the gaps on certain events, and then there's always something pushing kind of the modern narrative forward. So you're jumping between these two timelines where, 1992 and then I guess what would that make it? Would that make it 2019? 27 years later? Because it is 92.
I don't know.
So it must
Is
be
it 27 years later?
Is it 27 years? Or is that it? Am I confused?
That's it. I don't know if it's...
They just say almost 30 years. I thought they said 27 at some point. In any case, 92 and present day is what they say. And basically each episode gives you a little bit more insight into the events that happened in 92. Fleshes it out a little bit. And of course they start with the person who gets the least details about it, which is Steve, and kind of work you up to Nell. But at the same time, they're always giving you events in the present day to move that narrative forward as well. But then even then, like, it's not till Nell's episode that we really find out what happened with her. And like, I don't know, this series, I almost said this film because that's what I'm so used to. This season of TV, just does such a good job of hooking you with these characters, making you care about each one of them individually, their journey individually, how these events impacted them differently based on how old they were, based on their personalities, based on their kind of their shining, if you will, whatever abilities they may possess or may not possess. I love how much it's able to subvert your expectations, but in a satisfying way. I think back to like Abigail being real, and like I enjoy that like some of them have powers, but not all of them do.
And that it's like a perfect mix of dealing with mental illness and actual ghosts.
Exactly. Yeah. Like it's a combination. Like they are like there is mental illness involved, but like at the same time, the house actually is haunted as well. So like, like it's not one or the other. It's both. And a lot of it is about being able to deal with both of those things in a healthy way, which they are not able to do until after the events of the series, of course. Otherwise, there would be no drama. There's a lot of themes of empathy and forgiveness and that family bond that exists, and all of these things just come together over the course of these 10 hours to be incredibly satisfying, to tell this story in a way that really makes you feel it, and like I said, leaves you satisfied at the end, even if it's not like the happiest of endings, because it kind of ties up in a bow with like, oh, all the kids are friends now and they all have their significant others and everybody's happy dandy, but like their dad still died and Nell still died and the house is still haunted
And the house is still there.
Yeah, like all these things. So I don't know, that's my long rambling hot take. But overall, big fan. Let's start at the top. I want to do this. Favorite episode?
Ooh.
2 Storms.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
That one is just, it's, just the camera work alone is fantastic in that one.
For those who don't know all of the
6?
episode titles.
Right. Okay. That is, which episode is that?
I think it's 6.
That one is 6.
Amazing.
That one is, sorry. What is happening to me?
I can't tell. Nice.
It's the
Great
syphilis.
podcasting. It's the syphilis.
Sorry, guys. No, that one is it switches between present day where they are kind of getting ready for Nell's funeral and past when there was a big storm at the house when they were younger. And just I think it's such an interesting episode because there's a lot of talking and there's a lot of fighting, and you really get to know the characters and understand them more, and kind of their motivations, and I feel like that's when like things really start to come to a head with family drama in between everyone.
Well, because that's when in the modern timeline they finally all get in the same room.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like it briefly happens during Nell's episode, right? Or do they not even?
Well,
think
with
it just
Nell's
happens in
episode,
her,
Oh
like,
no, because
vision.
it's
her
at the
wedding.
beginning of 7, or at the beginning of 6. At the beginning of that episode is when Steven and Hugh and Luke show up at the funeral home,
Yeah.
right? So so that is the first time they all get in the same room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it's just like there's just so much drama between all the characters, and just the craft and the camera work alone is so good. Like long shots, like 15 minutes long, and they're like doing these rotating shots where things change every time they come back around.
In and out of frame. Nell
It's
appears and
amazing.
disappears.
Oh
and-
my gosh, I can't even believe that episode. I love that one. A close second would definitely be Ben Neck Lady.
Okay. We'll talk about 6 right now then as we're doing it. The thing that I noticed about, and it kind of caught my attention in that episode, but I noticed it for the rest of the series, was how much that episode had in common with like a stage production. And that they had these really long, really choreographed sequences, but even the style of acting came off as like stage acting, because it just kind of does in those kind of very long takes. I think that's something that's like a huge strength of like Birdman, for example.
Yeah.
And I don't think that I mentioned that in the episode, but thinking back on like these movies and shows that rely really heavily on these super long sequences, like there's just a difference between always being able to use the best take, right? Which is like if you do shorter cuts, like you literally can always use the best 5 seconds of that scene and just paste it all together. The alternative being something like this, where like there might have been mess ups that we didn't notice, or like things that had to be edited out in post or whatever, but like the way the actors act and the way they interact with each other and how they come in and out of frame and in and out of rooms, like it's all so similar to a stage production. And I noticed that style really throughout the back half of the series. There's a lot of those really long monologues, and again, I think back to Birdman. I think about when they're doing the rehearsal, and what's his name? Main guy in Birdman. Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton.
He like steps to the front of the stage and the spotlight, the spotlights come down on him and the rest of the place goes out of focus. And I'm like, that's a really like stage type of thing to do. And the last 4 episodes or so rely really heavily on these super long monologues. And that kind of bothered me the first time around. I was like, geez, I don't want to listen to this person talk. But like when I got into that kind of a mindset of like, think of it as a stage production, I got super into it. And I thought the monologues were super effective. But even just like how many things are going on in the background, and like people need to move through physical space. So when you're doing a full 360 on the camera, like people are going to be in the background moving in and out. And it's I guess the 2 strengths I will talk about this episode. And that's one is that the craft of it is absolutely exhilarating. It's so fun to watch and pick apart and say, how did they do this? And imagine what's going on behind the scenes as, you know, the girl dressed up as Nell, with her neck all jacked up and stuff. Imagine how she's moving, you know, offset and back on set. And then, you know, I'm sure they do a lot of audio work to eliminate any like rustling in the background, but she's like changing position, and like all of that is so exciting and so easy to just get so caught up in the craft of it. The second strength of that episode is that probably 60% of the episode I completely forget about the craft of it.
Yeah.
Because the acting and the drama and the writing and the way they're all interacting with each other, that is so much more engaging. So I think the strength of it is that it has this incredibly I don't know the word, it has this incredible proficiency to it, that they're putting together this episode so well with these long sequences and people moving in and out and doing all these kind of crazy complicated things. And even in the scenes in the house, like the statues are changing, you know, the camera will go down the hall and then 30 seconds later it'll zoom back out and the statues are looking different ways. Like all these things that have to be happening in the background, that's so exciting and exhilarating. But the choice from the director, who I assume is Flanagan, I don't know if did he direct every episode?
I'm pretty sure.
I don't know. I assume it's Flanagan. His choice to not be reliant on that, but to have drama and acting and writing that itself is so engaging that the technicality of the episode is sugar on top of the story rather than the story being sugar on top of the technicality of it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think with the camera work as well, it helps you feel like you're there and like understand the space better, like understand where everything's set up in the funeral home and where everything is set up in the house. And that's really grounding, I think, for the story, and helped me understand it more, just knowing the layout better.
Yeah, and the physicality of it, we were talking about that a little bit during the episode as well, is like just the set design that goes into being able to plan something like that. Like a lot of times when we see a movie set, it looks complete to us because production designers are incredibly talented, but like here it really needed to be built out because they need to move the camera through this space.
Yeah.
And I was trying to nitpick a little bit, like, oh, there was probably a cut there, there was probably a cut there, but the point of it is like it's so seamless. And they do such a good job with it. Like, I don't know. I love that episode. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's probably my second favorite.
I feel like all of ours are the same because I'm pretty tied between 5 and 6. Like, with 10 as a close third.
10 is really, really good.
Like, just Nellie's episode.
It's so good.
Is amazing and like so emotional.
Like she's definitely like the emotional tie in the family. I cry like a stupid baby in that episode.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah, I think, and I'll let you go first because I don't want to steal your thoughts, but I think that Becca and I are in agreement that Bet Neck Lady, episode 5, which is Nell's episode, is our favorite, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'll let you go first.
Okay. I love that episode for a lot of reasons. I think it's good placement to have her last of the siblings. I mean, she is the youngest, so that makes sense. But to have her be the one that's there in the house, the one who died, like, I think that's really good placement. And then just everything that happens in the house and the way it cuts from being this like bright, lively, music-filled place to literally just silence.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one thing that I noticed a lot, because a couple times when it cut, I thought maybe it would still like have the music playing really quietly and like have it just kind of eerie.
You're talking about when she's dancing?
Yeah, when she's dancing.
Yeah.
But it's always silent, and that makes it more eerie.
Yeah, for sure.
And then just the like finding out that she is the bent neck lady is the most chilling moment of the entire series.
Yeah, absolutely. Even knowing what was coming, I got chills.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like that is just, yeah. Well, and that moment is where it really ties all of them to the house and
Mm-hmm.
ties them to the house from the beginning. Like the fact that as a child in that house, she sees the bent neck lady
Mm-hmm.
and it's her, and you know that, like, it's, yeah, so chilling.
I think that it does take the cake as my favorite episode. Honestly, as we were watching, like, I loved it. I came to appreciate a lot of the other episodes a lot more. Specifically the twin thing, which is Luke's episode.
Mm-hmm.
And then Eulogy, which is Hugh's episode. As we were watching, both of those became contenders for my favorite episode as well. I think that those kind of middle four of like 4, 5, 6, 7 are just the cream of the crop. And then 10 is incredible as well. I think what puts Nell's episode above everything else for me is the context that is given in episode 10, as far as like what the house is.
Mm-hmm.
And in what way it is haunted. So I want to talk about my interpretation of it, and I'm curious if you guys agree, because it's never like explicitly said like this is what haunts the house. But basically what I understand is that the house doesn't necessarily have like a will. The house is not evil or good, and the overarching haunting of Hill House is neither good nor bad. It's hungry. It wants is for people to die in the house so that the spirits stay there. And if you die in the house, your spirit sticks around. Mm-hmm. So like the house doesn't care who is there. The house just wants people to die there. So that basically it can keep itself populated with spirits. And then whether the haunting is good or bad comes more from the disposition of the ghosts themselves. So the great majority of the ghosts are just kind of average. Mm-hmm. Like they're just people, with the exception of Will and Poppy.
Yeah, because they were insane.
Because they were insane, like they were malicious in life.
Will being the boiler hat man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. That's how I understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I think that it's interesting who is targeted by the house. Being mostly Nellie and Luke. And I think that comes from the fact that the house thought they were going to die there. Like they were supposed to die there with the mom giving them the poison tea. Mm-hmm. But then Nellie and Luke get out. So the house basically has it out for Nellie and Luke, which is why they are the ones that continue to see their ghost that kind of gets assigned to them outside of the house. Because the house has decided, no, Nellie and Luke need to die here. Mm-hmm. And like, that's what matters. And that's also why when the whole crew goes back, Luke is the only one that Poppy actually tries to kill.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she doesn't try and kill Steven or Theo or Shirley. Mm-hmm. She just like knocks him out so that they can't stop her from killing Luke. Because Nell has already died there, and now Luke needs to die there to kind of settle the score.
Yeah.
If you will.
And I think there's also like the connection between the twins and the mom, where
That's
there's
true.
like obviously they're very connected to each other. So I feel like it's also kind of like the pull of the mom in the house, as well as the house itself and Poppy.
That's fair. I just think to why like Nell saw the bent neck lady, and I think that's what it is. I think it's just the house trying to settle its score.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think also they were the most impressionable. Same with Liv, so they were the ones who were the most affected by the house while they were there.
That's fair.
Because Liv was already dealing with migraines and mental illness.
Well, Liv already
lately.
had The Shining, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's not in the Shining universe. I understand that. I just think it's a
yeah.
convenient term
it is a good term.
to describe generic psychic abilities of some sort.
Mhm. But yeah, like they were very impressionable, and so the house grasped onto them the most.
That's fair. I think that makes sense.
And so where the other ones could kind of break away and not be so connected to the house, they never could.
Yeah. So I guess the reason that I bring this all up is that it kind of changes my view of a lot of Nell's episode, specifically the back half where she goes to the house. And it's like I don't know, it brings up an kind of an interesting I guess conflict in my head, because like on the one hand she dies
Yeah.
and like has to stay at Hill House forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, like the house provides this kind of magnificent vision for her where she, for literally the first time in her entire life, gets everything that she wants. She gets her family all in the same room. They all make amends. Luke is there and he's clean. Her husband is there. She gets to dance with her husband. Like,
And see her mom and be with her
and see her mom and be with her mom. Like, the house literally gives her, and to Nell it's real. Like, it's not real. We see that. That's made very clear. But like the house gives her this spectacular vision. And so it the first time you watch it through, you're almost wondering like, oh, is the house like maybe not so malicious? But I think that was just the house being manipulative and knowing
Yeah.
this is what I can do to get her to die here tonight.
Yeah. When I rewatched it this last time with Austin, at that scene where she's dancing, I'm crying.
Yeah.
But he was terrified at that part because he just had no idea what was coming.
Yeah.
So it's you can definitely see both sides where it's like this is a very sweet moment for her, but also their underlying malicious intent.
Yeah. It's so like knowing what the house is changes the context of the entire last 20 minutes of her episode.
Well, and to your point, Sid, I think that's what I love about this show is that like the monsters are like their own monsters. And like Steve says it in his book a bunch that like it's your own ghosts and your own fears and your own regrets and all of those things. And the house just kind of brings those to life. And while there are malicious ghosts, that like Nellie does end up killing herself. I mean, with the encouragement of Poppy, but right? That's
I think it was her mom.
Yeah, it was her mom.
her mom, right?
Yeah.
And her mom was with the encouragement of Poppy.
And this is kind of just going back to why Nell and Luke were targeted. Thinking back, I don't think any of the other three kids like actually saw a ghost except for Steven when he saw like the clockmaker. But I'm racking my brain and I don't think Shirley or Theo actually saw a ghost.
Theo feels it
Yeah.
a couple times, but I don't think
Yeah,
she sees
I don't think they see anything. Shirley and Theo have that moment where they're in the room and all the paintings
yeah.
start banging.
Yeah. But like they never like are like face to face with a ghost really.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess that's true. Like Hugh, Nell, Luke, and Liv are really the only ones.
Yeah.
But Hugh doesn't see any ghosts until the last night, right?
I don't think so, yeah.
Yeah.
And then he sees all of them.
Yeah, he sees the whole crew,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty dope.
Yeah.
Seeing all of them together.
The part when they like first walk in, Steven and Hugh and like the boiler hat guy just like
Will.
yeah,
Yeah.
just like comes right in his face.
Oh my gosh.
I found myself at that part wondering like what would have happened if he looked at him.
Yeah, me. I think I asked that
He
out
does
loud.
kind of like glance at him.
Yeah.
I think it's more about
Because Luke
fear.
Luke looks at him.
Yeah.
Remember when Luke is a kid,
Yeah.
he brings his head down under the bed and gets in Luke's face.
Well, because at that same time in that episode, that's when Steve is kind of narrating that most of that episode.
Yeah.
And at that moment, Steve in his narration is talking about fear and how like the house wants you to be afraid. And so I think in that moment, it was more like looking at him wouldn't have necessarily done anything bad except for maybe made him more afraid. So looking at his father instead kept him grounded.
And,
And then the
that
ghost
makes sense.
goes away and the house lets them.
I'm sure the
continue.
fear makes them more susceptible to the house
Yeah.
and the house's wills.
Yeah, because like the house wanted Nell and Luke, but I don't think it would have said no to anybody else.
Yeah.
Let's see. Favorite character, like favorite story arc.
I think I think probably Theo.
I was just going to say.
Really? Okay,
Yeah.
let's talk about that.
I mean, I kind of resonate with her where like I'm not like the most happy-go-lucky person in the world, but like she's just like,
I didn't get that at all in all the time.
what
I've
are you
known
talking about with just
No,
I
like
know.
you. I mean, like
I know
never.
it's like it's so hard because I'm just like my voice is so high.
I never got
and I'm
that vibe
just
from you at all.
bouncing off the walls.
I thought you were like really
Constantly.
bubbly and drank a lot of boba tea and stuff
You
like
know,
that.
Looks can be deceiving. But she's honestly just like cool.
Mm-hmm.
And like with her ability to feel things, it makes her a really interesting character in terms of like the house and like how she interprets things. And I just think she's a super interesting character. Like she's not necessarily like, because she is kind of like an angry person, she wasn't the most enjoyable to watch, but I just liked kind of how she went from being this like stone cold, like don't touch me, I hate everyone, to like she's married now and she's more loving and she took off her gloves and she's willing to feel things again.
I think that she probably gives my favorite performance out of the adults.
Yeah.
I think her performance is super dynamic
Mm-hmm.
in the way she's able to, you know, turn in an instant from pissed off to vulnerable to, I don't know, just all these different emotions that she gets across.
I think Theo is also my favorite, but for sake of conversation, I mean, all of them are great, but I really like Luke's character from the very beginning to the end. First of all, he's the most adorable little boy.
He's so cute.
Like,
just like his glasses are like halfway down his nose and he's always looking up.
like
So cute.
I want him as a son.
And you know, older him's pretty
Yeah.
easy on the
Freaking
eyes too.
snack, dude.
I remember seeing like an article and it was like, surprise, the guy who plays Luke is hot. And I was like, that's not a surprise to anyone. We've seen him before.
I love Luke's character and just everything he goes through. I think the twin thing, like their ability is really cool that they can feel each other. And when in his episode, when he's like really cold and stiff, like it's so good.
And I'm watching it this third time. When Steve tells him that Nell's dead, he like goes to rub his neck and like I honestly didn't even really catch on that he was like cold and stiff because Nell was dead. And it's just the little things that you can pick up every time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Luke's just like perceptive and he gets it. And as soon as Shirley says that Nell broke her neck when she died, like Luke knew. Like that, I feel like that wasn't even a good enough clue, especially for the audience, for us to get. Like I didn't get it the first time.
She was the bent neck lady.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, Luke's talk at the funeral,
Oh my
just
gosh.
Niagara Falls.
Oh my gosh.
So good.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting because I think Luke is my favorite, so I'll do a for sake of conversation and give
Okay.
my second favorite,
Okay.
which I have a hard time picking. But I would put it as a tie between Shirley and Hugh. I think that overall, I think that Luke has my favorite arc, but I think that Hugh is probably my favorite character.
Okay.
Just like as you get to know him in the 90s, how he interacts with the kids. He's a really good dad. Like, he just wants to protect his family and like do what's best for them. And then he's presented with this like really crappy situation and has to do what he thinks is best. But then he sticks by his guns, like, even if like he didn't make all the right choices. And like the way that he deals with like hallucinating his wife, and like I think he's just a really compelling character, as far as like somebody who is just willing to do what they consider to be the right thing, even at the expense of his relationship with his kids.
And his story is interesting because he didn't see ghosts until the last night, and not even for very long.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he had to piece together everything that was going on.
Well, it was once he went back and the Dudleys explain it to him.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but like, even right then, to know that like my children are in danger and now there's ghosts in the house too, like, I don't know, he was just very perceptive that night.
Well, and even like in that time to be, I guess, conscientious of how his kids would perceive things.
Mm-hmm.
Like how you make Steve close his eyes.
Yeah.
And
I want to know what Theo experienced when she touched his arm that night.
When she freaks out and she yells like, "Don't touch me."
when
it's like showing Theo's flashback, and it's when they're leaving the house on the last night, and he has like his arm or his hand on her, dragging her out.
Oh, yeah,
and she
that's
freaks
interesting.
out.
I didn't even think about
Like,
that.
she probably only saw him going up to the red room and shoving his wife,
Yeah.
like shoving
Yeah,
Liv against
maybe.
the wall. But like, just because of her reaction, like, I want to know what she saw.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then my other one, as far as favorite arc after Luke, I think would be Shirley. She's just a really compelling character. Somebody who completely, internalizes all of these experiences and uses them as kind of a wall. And her perception of Steve failing as the oldest and feeling like she needs to take on that role in what she considered to be his absence. And like, I think that fight between her and Theo, I think it's in episode 8, is really good. Where
When they're in the car, or
no, before they leave, and Theo calls her. I guess that's just an extended fight. So yeah, I guess it continues into the car.
Is that when they're in it's Halloween? And okay.
Yeah, and Theo basically calls her out and is like, "We all know that you're not perfect. You don't have to try and convince us that you are."
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that, I don't know. I felt for that. I felt for Shirley, and like that she felt this need to be perfect in the absence of, like effective parenting and a healthy relationship between her parents. And she felt like Steve failed as the oldest brother, and so her like perception of, oh, the family needs a figure, and that falls on my shoulders now, and that like the damage that weight did to her and all of that. I don't know. I think she has a really compelling arc, and then being able to be vulnerable to Theo and to her husband and all those things. I don't know. I think she's a really compelling character.
I mean, I definitely think that all the characters are very compelling. There are definitely ones that, like, Steve can be a little obnoxious, and
he bugs the crap out of me.
Oh yeah,
but like
for sure.
not in like a I don't want to watch this way,
Yeah.
but in like a you suck way.
Yeah.
Well, Shirley bugs me too. Like, she's just so difficult.
Yeah, she can, but like also at the same time, like, you can kind of understand why she's having such a hard time. But like, I remember watching this with my family, and like, we're pretty much like a family of therapists, and we're like
That's fun.
That's true.
we're like getting mad at Steve because he's like saying this is only a mental health thing. And I was like, 99% of my life I'm like, people get help for your mental health, but as soon as they put it in a TV show, I'm like, no, it's a ghost, don't take care of your mental health. But yeah, there are definitely characters that are just more compelling, resonate better, better story arcs. But overall, I really love everyone. I mean, Steve is definitely at the bottom of the list for sure. But
Yeah. Also, just like, I mean, he does, and that's not to say that his arc isn't interesting. Like that idea of him, like he can't explain these things that are happening. He didn't see any ghosts. He didn't have any supernatural experiences. And so to him, it's like, no, you actually are all crazy. And the way that that affected him, like when he would talk to his dad about like how, you know, our genes are bad. Like he got a vasectomy right out of college. Like I won't pass this on. Like just the different way that they all, I guess, dealt with these goings on. Goings on. I don't know.
I don't know.
Meh. Let's see. Favorite ghost and or monster.
I think the creepiest one for sure is bowler hat guy, Will.
Mm-hmm.
Just seeing him floating and he's so tall, and like hearing his story later about why he's so tall.
That monologue from Poppy is one of my favorite moments of
It's
the
not
whole
Poppy,
show.
right?
Yeah.
No, it's
No, that talks about
That talks
bowler
about
hat.
Will.
No,
It's
it's
Trish.
it's Trish. Yeah, it's
The
in
Theo's
Theo's.
girl.
Oh, that's right. Well, it's Poppy
Yeah.
speaking as Trish
Yeah.
in Theo's vision.
But just like I didn't even piece together that they like all of these were the same thing.
Yeah.
But just like seeing him like behind the wall, and he's super tall later, and then you finally get the story on why he's so freakishly tall, and he's just terrifying and like
Yeah. And that was one thing that I noticed. Sorry, but the visions that they all have, like watching it back and knowing the characters a little better, it's so obvious that everybody that they talk to in their visions, whether it's Lee or Trish or Joey, it's so obvious that it's just Poppy. Like they don't sound like themselves. Their speech patterns change and the vocabulary that they use changes. Like it's so obvious that it's just Poppy controlling their visions, and that's so well done. I love it. But yeah, that speech she gives about how Will's ghost came to be.
yeah, so good.
Oh my
So
gosh.
cool. I definitely think that Will is the scariest ghost. Just because he's just creepy. He never touches you, or like he never touches Luke or actually does anything.
Yeah.
He just kind of floats around and looks creepy. And in Luke's episode, when he's just like closer and closer and closer to him, it's so terrifying.
Oh my gosh. And like all you can
Well, because
hear
at that
is just
point,
his
at that
cane.
point, you don't know that he's not dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because what makes Poppy dangerous is not physicality; it's that she's crazy and manipulative,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Well, and Poppy is exactly what you'd expect from a ghost.
yeah,
Like when you think of a scary ghost, it's
Yeah.
Poppy.
Mhm.
So she's like not that scary because she's like traditional, I guess, or like expected from a ghost. But Will is just this wacky ghost.
Yeah.
it's just such a good design.
Yeah.
He's definitely like the wackiest out of all the ghosts.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
And he's just like, he's already so tall, but then he's also floating off the ground, and he's just
Yeah.
looking for his hat. And,
and the way that he moves, just like,
Oh,
and then he floats silently.
oh, jeez.
Oh, it's so free. I 100% agree. He's absolutely my favorite ghost. And one of my favorite moments of the entire series is when they bust down the wall and you go
Oh
in
my
and you see the
gosh.
body and it takes you a second, but then your eyes find the cane
Mm-hmm.
and you're like,
Yeah, it's so good. And also, I guess she's not actually a ghost, but Abigail is such a good character.
yeah.
oh, absolutely.
Like just this
Well, she's
little
just-
girl in the
she's
trees.
she's just a misdirection. Like
Uh-huh.
they want you to think she's a ghost and she's
Yeah.
not
uh-huh.
I mean,
until she
Because
is.
she's
Yeah.
also what you would pick, like a traditional ghost, a
Just like
creepy
a
little
creepy
girl,
little girl.
in the window.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
with a weird haircut and an old-fashioned dress. Like,
Yeah. I also do really like Poppy.
Yeah, she's
she's fine. I don't love her, but I feel like she's necessary for the story.
yeah.
Yeah. I just love when she talks and like the little monologues she gives, and then what I forget exactly how she does it, but what she talks to she tells Hugh the story of is it Will that kills the family that she's talking about?
I don't remember.
She talks about somebody killing the family, killing the parents and then the baby.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know if it's Will or if it's her or somebody. But she does it in this like sing-songy, rhymey voice. Oh my gosh, it's just so. She's such a good actress. And then there's that scene where she takes Liv to the sitting
Just
room.
gonna say that, yeah.
And I didn't notice this. We had to rewind it. Becca noticed it, but they walk in, and the camera pans over, and Poppy's talking, and then it pans back, and all of a sudden there's a second chair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that whole conversation between them and just the connection between them throughout the whole time that Liv is there, and that Poppy's just putting these ideas into Liv's head that like to keep her children safe she has to kill them.
Yep.
And that makes sense to Liv, and that idea is terrifying that like
Yeah.
Because Liv honestly thinks that she's making them safe and that they're gonna be totally fine after that. It's like you can, like, she's just not in her right mind. She can't rationalize
But it's interesting too, because if she had succeeded in killing Nell and Luke, they would have been ghosts in Hill House with her and never would have experienced, like Poppy was saying, you don't want them to experience putting poison in their body and killing themselves and having all this heartache.
Yeah, she was right. Like,
Yeah.
bad things did happen to them, but like
I don't know. I just think it's an interesting look at Liv's point of view and Poppy's point of view.
Another contender for one of my favorite moments in the whole thing is when Liv is outside of the room that Steve and Hugh are inside of, and Poppy's like, he's taking them from you, he's taking from you, blah, blah, blah. And she's just like going, and then the old lady, she lies. Just like out of nowhere, you turn around, it's this like disgusting old lady, and Liv goes in there, she's like, what? She's a liar, that one. Like, oh, it's just so good. Like, this old lady just like finally her patience is tested, and she oh man,
So many good moments.
yeah, really, it's so well done. The characters are really well developed. They make you care about every single one. Yeah.
Well, I think the themes throughout that really come through, and like where it makes it a drama over a horror, like they're going back to their past and confronting it as a family and like coming to terms with things, and then they leave and get better. And like that's what you have to do when you have a messed up childhood, you know, like you have to confront it and deal with it and come out better on the other side.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Overall themes. I think one more thing I want to mention is just the recurring theme of empathy.
Oh yeah.
Of like, for example, like with Luke, like what allows him to actually move on is getting screwed over the way that he screwed over his entire family so many times, and like feeling that betrayal. Like I feel like, and being able to empathize with that, right? Like, because he says it's so interesting, like the difference between like his 90-day speech where he's like, I've screwed over my family so many times and I feel so bad about it and everything, and I hope I never have to experience that. And then he does. And
I don't think I picked up on that.
Yeah, and that's
until you
when he
said it.
actually gets to become clean.
Yeah.
Is when Joey screws him over and betrays him, and he's like, oh geez, like this is what I'm doing to my family.
Yeah.
And then a similar one would be like Theo. When she
Smiley Man.
Huh?
I was just remembering her episode.
Yeah, but no, I'm thinking later on, where she's having the conversation with her dad, where she's like, you know, I know that we all F up, but like, you don't know like how bad it feels until you actually F up, and like how much you want that forgiveness and people to be able to let it go. And like, I feel like that's a major stepping point in her character, to not be so angry and hold so many grudges and that kind of thing when she like is in a situation where she desperately wants to be forgiven for something that she like actually feels ashamed of. And like just that understanding of like, this is how it feels.
Well, and I think Theo specifically is an interesting character when talking about empathy, because that's pretty much what her character is and what her power is. It's just like an intensely heightened sense of empathy, because everything she touches, she feels that. And so it's cool to watch her like have this power, but then still not totally even understand empathy until later on.
Yeah. And like Steve as well with trust, right? Like
Mhm.
thinking that he knows it all until he finds out that he doesn't, and like from there being able to trust people. Hugh having a similar thing of being able to trust people to let them in. He felt that by keeping everything secret, he was protecting people, but in the end, it didn't.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the characters learning different aspects of empathy or trust or
Mm-hmm.
responsibility through experience, and kind of learning the effect that they had on other people with their negative actions, and being able to, I guess, change that going forward. I thought that was really effective. They each have some aspect of their lives that they are able to improve because of the events of the show.
Except maybe Nellie. She was just pretty good the entire time.
Yeah.
Like, she just was always, a good person, and bad things were happening to her.
Yeah. Maybe fear. I don't know.
Yeah.
Being able to confront it.
Mm-hmm.
Got her killed, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she was, I guess, the best one of any of them to die, I think.
probably.
Because she like didn't really have anything to learn before dying.
And she was the one that everyone like cared about the most, I think.
Yeah, they all. She was the only one that everybody liked,
Yeah.
except for Steve.
Except for Theo. But that was a dumb argument that they had, I think. Like,
Yeah.
they have an argument and then they don't talk to each other for a really long time. Like,
It can happen though.
I know, it just was a silly argument, but it's fine.
Anything else?
I don't think so.
What kind of trivia do we have?
We got some good trivia.
Buckle in, folks.
So the Crane children represent the 5 stages of grief. Stephen is denial, Shirley is anger, Theo is bargaining, Luke is depression, and Nell is acceptance.
That's good.
Yeah. And it also really ties into like what they have to learn.
Yeah.
Russ Tamblyn, who plays Dr. Montague, who is like Nell's psychiatrist, played Luke in the movie adaptation from '63.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Is there any indication if that's any good or not?
I have no idea.
All right.
No. I know it's more true to the book. In the first episode, when young Luke is in his treehouse, he has a E.T. lunchbox, and the Henry Thomas, who plays the young Hugh Crane, is Elliot from E.T.
Seriously?
Uh-huh.
I did want to say, we were pointing out in all the episodes this time, each of the kids' red rooms had something red in it.
Oh. Uh-huh.
So like,
And they all have the same window.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the treehouse door, when it's opened, it's red, and then Steve's beanbag that he sits on is red. Liv's chair that she sits on is red. Nellie's like tote that she opens and has toys in is red. I can't remember what was red in Shirley's room though. I don't think I saw anything.
Yeah.
But it was fun to catch all those.
Yeah, that's cool. So young Hugh Crane wore like really blue eye contacts. And older Hugh Crane has kind of gray eyes. And so what they wanted to do with that is like kind of through this process of like his wife dying and his family falling apart, it pretty much just like his eyes faded in color and it just got drained out of him. Let's see. Oh, in the first episode when Nell is dancing around, you can see a mirror, and it's the same mirror from Oculus, which was also directed by Mike Flanagan.
Oh.
Ooh, that makes sense. He's quite talented. Oculus, hard underrated. Oculus
And
is really good.
He's doing Dr. Sleep.
Well, that makes me a little more excited for it.
Yeah, it does.
That puts me from like a 3 to a 4.
Mike Flanagan is married to Kate Siegel, who plays Theo, and she's been in pretty much all of his movies.
Jeez. Cannot imagine directing a movie and watching you make out with a bunch of chicks.
I'm sure he was fine with it.
Be weird.
The first 15 minutes and 38 seconds of episode 6 were done in one straight take, no edits, no cuts. The whole episode is comprised of 5 of these long takes, the longest being the third, which is 17 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, production was shut down for 6 weeks. 6 weeks while they rehearsed for it.
Jeez, 6 weeks of that. Heavens.
Hold on. In the first episode, when Hugh is going around and like checking on all the kids, he looks in on Shirley, and Shirley says "dancing in the red room," and that's a little hint to Theo dancing in her red room. And that's the trivia I have for you. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Good work.
Thank you.
That's some good trivia.
Thanks.
Well, normally this is where we would rank it on the Weston scale, but this is a TV show. You can't rank a TV show on the Weston scale.
It's true.
So overall, I'm just going to give it a hard recommend.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's great.
Well, I already said it was my favorite TV show, so
That's
a
It's up
ranking.
there for
Yeah.
me. Yeah, for sure.
for sure. All right. Anything else?
Nope.
I don't think
All
so.
right. We don't have any other topics for you this week. Other movies that we watch will be covered in our 31 Days special episode, which will be coming soon. Reminder, this week we obviously are watching The Haunting at Hill House. If you missed last week, the theme was transformation. I explained in our episode of Under the Skin a little bit about the thought process behind that. This week's theme is House Divided, and obviously we are watching, as I said, The Haunting at Hill House. The idea there being that, family and friendship and these kind of bonds being the building blocks of civilization, if you will. The difference between disorganized life forms and organized life forms is, the family unit, basically. And so, obviously, the disintegration of that and those bonds and those relationships will be something that we are scared of. And that's something that The Haunting at Hill House explores very well. Next week, we'll be doing Classics Week, which you can look up a little bit more information about at 31daysofoctober.com. It's a really cool little website. Details all of the movies we will be watching over the course of the month. And yeah, we're stoked to have you guys watch these movies with us. If you want to get in contact with us, any thoughts you have, we are happy to hear them. You can email us, contact@wewatchpodcast.com. You can also slide into the DMs at facebook.com/wewatchpodcast or Instagram or Twitter @wewatchpodcast. We're happy to hear your thoughts, opinions. Do you agree? Do you disagree with anything we've said? We want to hear it. We appreciate you guys. You continue to help us get more listeners every month. Every month since April of this year has been our best month. We've topped ourselves, or you have helped bring in more listeners. So every month has had more listeners than the last since April of this year, and we're really stoked about that. We want to keep that trend going. So tell your friends, tell your mom about our podcast, and any movies that you would like us to watch. We're happy to take listener suggestions as well. So, anything else, guys?
Nope.
All right. Well, we thank you. We love you. My name is Andrew.
I'm Becca.
I'm Sid.
And we'll catch you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.